One of the worst mistakes that I hear is people say, I can't do a body transformation this year because I'm too busy. It's the fact that you're busy that you need to do a body transformation, because when you're locked in and dialed in with your health, your sleep, your fitness, your relationships will be better, your work will be better, your energy levels will be better. Invest in your health, you'll be more productive, you'll be a clearer thinker.
Which is where the R&T journey works really nicely. You get into the best shape of your life, push yourself to the absolute limit, get into unsustainable condition, the photo shoot picture, and then work diligently to find your sweet spot. It's not gonna be the same place as your photo shoot, but it's gonna be a place where you feel, look, and perform your best. And having that trifecta is really key. You can look amazing, but you can feel and perform terribly.
When people are thinking about leaving RNT, it's always like, are you sure you want to do this? Because we all know what the outcome's gonna be. We'll see you in 6 to 12 months. If you leave people to their own devices, the most unlikely thing to happen is progress.
Yeah, death by 1,000 cuts, as you like to say.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Welcome back to another episode of R&T Fitness Radio. Today I'm joined by one of my really close friends, Daniel Hill of Property Entrepreneur, who's back again for another real hard-hitting episode where we discuss all things high performance, all things life by design, and really ask some serious hard-hitting questions to make you question where you're at in your life right now and where you want to go. Too many people are living on the hedonic treadmill of the same day after same day on repeat. And this episode is designed to really question some of the beliefs that we carry on each day and how we can take our lives to the next level, whether it's through challenges, whether it's through pushing ourselves to the extreme, and really what goes into the quest for constant, continuous and evolving high performance. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with your family and friends. Hit subscribe on R&T Fitness Radio, and as always, leave a review if you've enjoyed it, because it really does help spread the mission of this podcast. Without further ado, let's dive in and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, you sent me a Marcus Waring podcast, and you said this is a very timely listen for you to dial into with everything that's going on. And the start of the podcast asked a really interesting question that led him down various rabbit holes. And the interviewer said, what does high performance mean to you?
Yeah, so, and it's an amazing question. I think he said his dad, didn't he? He was like, his dad is high performance, the definition of high performance. I would say for me, it's this adrenaline rush. High performance for me is like being your best, going a million miles an hour, really, really opening the taps and seeing what you're capable of. And my vision of high performance in my head is like a Formula One car sliding sideways around the corner, like trying to make the most of every single curve and get yourself across the line in the quickest point, but at the highest level, like not doing it, not using speed at the sacrifice of, or not using speed at the cost of quality, is being world class and the best, performing the best, being the best version of yourself, and everything you can put out. What about you?
Well, before I go into that, what does being the best version of yourself mean? What does being world class and being the best mean? Is it financial? Is it material? Is it what does that even mean?
I think it changes. I think you've got as we develop, I think we acquire different. We become attracted to different things. So from the off, for me, being the best was all about being success, and for me, success meant financial independence initially. Being able to be self-employed, then being able to have a business where I don't have to do the jobs I don't like, then building a big business. And on Property Entrepreneur, we call it success is. And every year, success, the definition of it changes. And as you get more developed, and maybe you've got a business, you've got a team, you're making money, and you get older, you start to value other things like time and freedom and fitness. And as you get older again, when you're young, you can go out, work 100-hour weeks, go out drinking at the weekends, be in the office Saturday morning with a hangover and still do a day's work. When you get into your later 20s and your early 30s, the idea of having a beer midweek would throw you completely off. So like high performance and being your best then is having to bring different tools in. And as you get higher, may get a paper aeroplane to fly as a piece of cake. Fold a piece of paper, it'll fly. Building Concorde or one of Elon Musk's rockets and getting it to Mars, being the best then, it requires all these advanced things to take us to the next level. And obviously health and fitness at my age and at the stage of my journey is like a key element to feeling good, being my best, and getting stuff done.
It's interesting you talk about time and freedom, because they're probably the two things I value most right now. When I think about what what success feels like these days, it's the ability to go to the gym at 2 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. It's the ability to design my days in the way I want the way I want them to be. And as long as I'm in tune with the three things I love doing most, which is training like an animal, being with my inner circle of people, and doing something really valuable for my business, I feel really, really good. And right now, especially doing that on my own terms, when I want to do it, where I want to do it, that feels like the optimal feeling of success. And it's something I can experience each day. So one thing I'm tuning into more than ever at the moment is, how can I land my head on the pillow at the end of the day and think, well, that was a really good day. And I poured it all into it, and I'm living at that knife's edge. We both read Way of Superior Man, and he talks about, what was he saying? Living on the edge, right? Was it? And when we were discussing it, when we were reading and saying, what does that even mean? And I feel like recently I've been experiencing that feeling of living on the edge, and it's almost been a feeling of like I'm going full throttle in all areas of things I enjoy doing, and I'm just about keeping it together, with a few like moments where I do fall off, but I'm just about keeping it together, and I'm really enjoying that journey. And that's what high performance for me right now feels like, or is, in my definition right now, is living on that knife's edge of training like an animal, building the business, and being with the people I love on a daily basis.
And that year of for you this year so your year of this year is the disciplined dad. And obviously I can see it in elements of what you're doing, more so from where I'm sitting, and I see you from the personal side and the professional side, is the superior man. Like, I see what you're doing now in real time, fighting, scaling the business, getting ready to be a dad. And I just think, it scares the living daylights out of me. I just think, I don't know if I've got what it would take. I look at you, I always look at you with, I remember one of my mentors, now business partners, said to me when we first met, I admire your energy. And I think that about you. I think I admire your energy, because I used to have that energy when I was younger. And I don't know if I'm just in a plateau in my life and I'm ready to go again, or if it's just that window for me is now closed. But I can absolutely see you living on the edge, and I think it's inspiring. I think it's motivating. I can sort of definitely don't envy it at all, because it's like, if I wanted it, I'd get it. I'd go for it. I just look at it aspirationally or inspirationally. I think it's amazing. And a shared a mutual friend of ours, ex-Navy SEAL coach, has a definition of success, which she says it's basically making the most of every day for a sustainable period. So it's the optimal daily experience for a sustained period, which means every day you're really enjoying what you do. Every now and again, most people would have a day and they're like, wow, do you know what? That day was amazing. And then they don't have another for another 6 weeks or another 6 months. The aim of the game, by her definition, which is one that I really subscribe to, and I think you're nailing at the minute, is that every day is like a Saturday. Every day is amazing. Every day is good fun. Every day is enjoyable. And I think that's a challenge. I really do. And I think the better they get, the higher the risk. Like when you're saying about this knife edge, I'm watching you do your thing, and I'm thinking you're getting closer and closer to the edge of the mountain, and it's like it's a knife edge at that level. Like, a Formula One car, when you're going around the corner at 250 mile an hour, it's the difference between winning the race and not. But also get it 1 inch wrong, and you're in the barrier.
Well, it's interesting you talk about fear, because almost daily I feel a sense of fear in multiple different ways. So I have a underlying sense of fear that I'm having a baby in 6 weeks. I've got an underlying sense of fear that I'm getting my lights knocked out in the ring. And then there's always a constant fear just in building business. There's always that underlying fear of whatever it may be. And even just the idea of growing something comes with it fear, right? So that I'm always in this state of fear, but at the end of every day, I've got to conquer that fear and then start again from the next day. And one of the things that I'm loving about this fighting journey is if I know I'm going to be sparring that day, that whole day I'm thinking about sparring. That whole day I'm thinking, oh, I need to make sure I don't get hit here. I need to make sure I don't get hit here. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. And the whole day I'm just living on like an edge of fear. And then when I get in the ring, I have to conquer it. And then I think to myself, oh, I've got to do that same thing tomorrow again. And it's just that constant cycle, but not in a sense of, oh, I hate doing it. It's just a sense of every day feels like growth. and every day feels like I'm pushing myself out of that comfort zone and living on that edge.
This is a really interesting one. For people who are going to be listening to this and want to either understand high performance or relate to high performance or aspire to be high performers, is that fear space is when, as soon as you said fear, my initial thought is when one of your core values is growth, fear has to come into it. Because it's like activity or living. I got that vibe from your Road to the Ring YouTube video where you said about basically like living starts at the edge of your comfort zone. You're in that space and you feel like you're really pushing yourself. And I think I did that for a long time, and then I actually quite enjoyed the comfort. So when in the early days, when the fear is borrowing £500,000 and putting it into your business and not knowing whether you're ever going to see it again, that fear every day gets you up and drives you. And it's not always a pleasant fear. We call it on Property Entrepreneur, we call it raising the stakes or upping the ante. It's like, initially, you've got that very real fear of quitting your job, your parents' expectation, your friends or family who choose to invest with you. That's a very real fear that drives you, and it's not always pleasant. Then you get to this plateau, which I think is a sweet spot, and it's a privilege where you actually create your own fear. So it's like, right, I want to do whatever it is, run a marathon, raise £1 million for charity, make £1 million myself, whatever people want to go and do. But when you're comfortable, this whole mantra of the biggest enemy of the great is the good. And we talk about it a lot with fighters. The reason a lot of them win one medal or maybe two, and then that's the end, is it's very hard to go running in the snow when you're sleeping in silk sheets. So you have to create this artificial fear. And this year I'm doing a level up year. So 2019, I did a level up year, which for me, I was going through a difficult period in my life. I'd had a couple of years of plateauing, and I wanted to know, did I still have it in me to be an absolute monster? Could I go out and really, really show people what this is about? And it was for my own satisfaction, but I had to create this artificial fear and level up. And for anyone who wants to know about high performance or do high performance, it's creating that space. So I went out and broke a world record for charity. I did a body transformation with RNT and lost probably about 15 kilos, got absolutely bone dry, shredded, went from building companies to buying companies, bought a supercar, bought a brand new Mercedes, moved into a penthouse apartment, did all these things that made me ridiculously uncomfortable. But the outcome was I was a different person. And then I enjoyed that for a few years. And then I've been really comfortable for the last couple of years, too comfortable. Obviously, I got semi-retired last year, had a year off, not a good experience for a high performer, from my experience at least. The devil makes work for idle thumbs. And I find if I'm busy and I'm active, my mind focuses on good things. If I have time to myself and space, I'll find something to worry about. Anything. Oh, this wall needs painting. These pencils aren't sharp enough. Like, I'll find something to worry about. And I shared with you yesterday, I went to pick up my new car. So this year we're doing level up. And for 10 years, I've talked about buying a Rolex, and I finally bought the Rolex. And I've gone back to having a drive, and I've been getting a drive. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go back to having a nice car and drive a nice car and have a driver to drive my car. And I thought, do you know what? What would be the ultimate level up? And I thought, I'm going to buy a Rolls Royce. So I thought, and as you do, you get seduced by these things. Everyone who's listening to this knows me, knows that I wear Primark jeans and £10 t-shirts. It would be very out of character for me to wear a Rolex and have a Rolls Royce. I thought, do you know what? If I do those things, it's going to take me to a different level. And I bought my watch. I don't have it on today, unfortunately. I bought that watch. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the boss. Do you know what I mean? I felt like this elevated version of myself. I thought, that's strange, but it's also like exciting. And I bought this Rolls Royce, and I thought, initially I got so excited about it. I was thinking, how amazing is this going to be, driving it myself, being chauffeured around in it, picking people up for the podcast, things like that. And then I pulled up to collect it yesterday, and I felt physically sick. I sat there and I thought, what the hell have I done? I genuinely sat there and I thought, what the hell have I done? I messaged my missus. I was like, what the hell have I done? I said to Naveed, my driver, I was like, I'm sitting here thinking, what the hell have I done? I just spent £250,000 on a car that I'm probably going to drive like once a week or whatever. I thought, what the hell have I done? And I had a shower this morning, and luckily it's been delayed for 2 weeks. So I've got some time to sort of actually get excited about it now. And I thought, what is it that made me feel sick? And what is it that made me feel nervous? And the conclusion I came to this morning in the shower, while I was thinking about coming down to spend the day with you, was I feel like I've been promoted for a job that I'm not ready for. I feel like I've been given a promotion. If someone gets promoted to above their means. I remember when I was younger, I would be sitting around an investor's table, and I was probably underqualified from the other people in the room. I was at the bottom of the ladder rather than the top. And I really try and push myself into that environment where if you're the smarter person in the room, you're in the wrong room. But I've only done it organically. And now I've gone out and bought this car. I genuinely feel like I've seriously got to raise my standards because authenticity and living authentically is like a real key part for me. And being driven around in a Rolls Royce and driving a Rolls Royce, there's certain things that don't align with that in your personal life, your professional life. And this morning I genuinely felt like I've been promoted into a role that I'm not ready for, I'm not qualified for. And now as an investor, an entrepreneur, a leader, I need to really raise my game. And then I drove down here to meet you and felt buzzing again. I felt excited. I felt that fear. And I'm like, this means I'm going to have to level up. And I was like, that was the aim of the game anyway. So bring it on.
Well, a couple of questions on that. Firstly, just for some context, when you first told me this last week, I couldn't believe it. I was in shock because, like you said, you're a £10 Primark t-shirt guy. But why does buying a Rolls Royce signify a level up for you? Outside of the obvious investment element, but why does it mean you've raised your standards? Why does it mean you've got to force yourself to step up?
So a lot of this is driven by perception, right? There's a real great quote that says, reputation is what strangers think of you. Yeah. Who you really are is what your friends think of. When you and I are sitting there at Christmas, when we always go away, we'll be sitting there in our trousers with holes in. We'll be looking at how much the veg is going to be and trying to get the discounted stuff and save 20p, because that's just who we are and that's the way we're going to be. When we want to go to have this higher impact and this bigger impact, the only way you win someone on first impression is by visual appearance. When you date somebody, when you're scrolling left and right, you're not looking at what their values are and how much of a great family person they're going to be. You're looking at, do I find this person physically, visibly attractive? And there's a degree of this. You've got to play the game, but when you're using social media and YouTube, in that first 10 seconds, someone's got to qualify. Is this guy who deals in property, talking about making millions of pounds, actually worth listening to? Or is he just another get-rich-quick scam artist who's going to take loads of money, disappear in 2 years, and he's got nothing to go by? Obviously, you can fake things, blah, 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 blah. But for me, it was like a couple of box ticks, get a nice Rolex on, get my car sorted, and it just resets that bar of like credibility. And then as I actually did it, what I realised was it forced me to be a better person, or not, that's the wrong word, better person. It forced me to raise my game. And when you're comfortable and you're in that good spot, you need to create that artificial space to grow into. And I think a brand should be something you grow into, not grow out of. And if I'm being driven around in a Rolls Royce doing 100 grand single let deals, that doesn't fit. I want to be doing £1 million deals, tens of £1 million deals. When you think about the whole think big concept, if I'm going to build a £100 million portfolio, I need to start thinking and behaving and acting and traveling like somebody that operates at that level. And when you've done this for long enough, you really understand that it's only ever your mindset that's limiting you. People who listen to this podcast, if I say about thinking big, what I mean is you want to look for a goal that is in sight, which means it's in sight. You can see it, you can believe it, you know it's physically possible because you've seen someone do it, a photo shoot, a body transformation, buying a Rolls Royce, flying private jets. You can see that it's possible, but it's out of reach. With your current skill set, there's no way you're going to get to where you are. And it's like, Roger Hamilton in his book says, in order for me to go to the next level, like the trustee level, it's not about holding on, it's about letting go. And it's letting go of all those things I used to think were important, like having transparency of the management team, etc., etc. And then it's talking about buying companies rather than building them, and writing multi-million pound checks rather than checks that are worth £500,000. And it's just, for me, it's forcing me to operate at that level.
Go on.
It's forcing me to operate at that level. So like you as being a visible international figure of health and fitness, it forces you to not do things that wouldn't align with that. People wouldn't find you down the pub on a Friday knocking back 10 pints of lager, because it's just like there's things that just no longer align.
Well, I was going to say this, the equivalent would be me being in shape and me being out of shape. There's almost a responsibility. The good thing is I love being in shape, but there is also an extra responsibility. And we talk about this on the way in that every day I wake up, I'm almost my own business card. And there is a responsibility for me to be in shape in order to be a figure of high performance body transformation. Because you're not going to look at it, if I'm fat and out of shape, you're going to think, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's that snap second of knowing, is he legit or not, comes from, is he practicing what he preaches in whatever context that may be, in business, fitness, whatever it is.
And that's the authenticity piece. Whether people are listening to this and not authentic, so they're thinking, do you know what, I'm saying I'm this, but I'm not walking the talk. Authenticity, I think, is a real core value for anyone who wants to have absolute confidence.
Yeah.
Are you actually who you say you are? And that doesn't mean, and you can pull yourself down or you can lift yourself up. It just means that it's aligned. And when I got finally aligned with who I actually am and who I project myself as, that was when I got real confidence. And that was probably 2012, 2013, maybe 10 years ago. Before that, I constantly felt like I was out of my depth. I wasn't who I wanted to be, etc., etc. And people who want to then raise the level is if you then start telling people, on RNT, we're talking about this new blueprint of raising the stakes and upping the ante. If you start telling people you're going to do something and you actually value your word, all of a sudden you create this artificial fear in this space to make you do something. We're the first ones to let ourselves down, and we need to replace that ease with whatever it is to be accountable.
Yeah, doing anything in public forces you to raise your standards. Writing an article, you have to suddenly think clearer. Doing a photo shoot and telling your friends about it, you're not going to show up fat on the day. For me, it's my Thai journey. I'm not going to suddenly be like, actually, guys, I'm not doing this.
If you're a man or a woman of
Exactly.
integrity, because some people don't value their own word. How many people know somebody that's rolls in on a Monday with this new paella salad diet that they've read on TikTok, and they're going to eat it, they're going to have this eggs for 10 days, 15 days later, they're in worse shape than they were when they started, because they don't care that they keep saying those things and never pulling the trigger. If people fall into that category and listening to this, the first thing isn't worrying about raise the stakes. It's raising your own standards of your own self, and either do one or two things. Saying you're going to do something and doing it is cool. Saying you're not going to do something and not doing it is equally cool. Saying you're going to do something and not doing it is not acceptable.
Yeah.
It's going to make you feel like shit. It's going to make you look like shit. It's going to make your confidence fall through the floor, and you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Well, self-esteem comes from being true to your word. And when you constantly say you're going to do something and not do it, your self-esteem just starts going through the floor, and then you don't have the confidence to do anything. So it just gets worse and worse and worse as you go along. And I think there's a book called 4 Agreements. Have you read it by
Yeah,
Miguel?
absolutely.
And one of the 4 agreements is
be impeccable with your word.
Exactly, be impeccable with your word. And I think that's we both share that value of integrity and authenticity. And when you have when what you do in a colleague of mine, Ivan, says what you do in private shows in public, and especially with food, if you're stuffing your face at night when no one's looking, it's going to show in public, right? And I think the same thing happens with everything else. If you're saying you're a health and fitness coach and a leading authority in the field, but you're not in shape and you don't believe you need to be in shape, you don't love being in shape, then people will smell that from a mile off. And it's why, as a coach in any field, you need to walk the walk. You need to constantly pushing the levels in walking the walk, whether it's in business, in fitness, in relationships. It's always walking the walk. And I think that's something we both value ourselves on, and always trying to push ourselves to the next level.
And everyone listening to this will want, if people are not confident, self-confident, I think self-confidence is one of the rarest traits, but one of the highest value. And it doesn't always mean you've got a 6-pack, you're walking around with a tan, you've got a hot guy or girl on your arm. In fact, a lot of that is fake confidence. It's trying to buy into this space that makes you confident. The confidence is, I think it's the Latin is or the French is confidant, which actually means someone you trust in. And confidence comes from having trust in yourself to be able to do the things that you say you're going to do. And it's people could actually become more self-confident by becoming more authentic, by actually just saying talking less crap.
Yeah.
Just align with who you are, be comfortable with it. And then what you'll actually find is all of those artificial stimulants, same as drugs, same as alcohol, which are fake promises. This week I'm going to lose weight. This week I'm going to do X, Y, Z. All of that stuff's actually having a negative impact on your confidence because you're saying it and not doing it. If you just drop that, realign with yourself, get comfortable, then you'll start to become more confident to do the things that will enable you to level up. And the thing with high performance is it's not a get rich quick. It's not an overnight success. At least my experience has been the opposite. It's tiny, it's incremental, it's slow and steady wins the race.
And a lot of people talk, a few people act. And the reason why I love body transformation and fitness as a way to build confidence is because the things you have to do on a day-to-day basis is what builds that character. The six pack, the Rolls Royce, the Rolex, all that stuff is just the sex and the wants and the things that get people excited. The reality is it means nothing. It's the process that comes behind it that really builds someone's character in the process.
Yeah, I think there's a few angles to it. I think as far as confidence comes and self-actualization and authenticity, which may not be that publicly sexy. People want to be whatever. I mean, you hear all these people who are rich, famous, and absolute, like, mentally and emotionally, they're really not in a great place. There's a whole heaven and hell. I suppose another element of authenticity is it's all a game. Like you and I talk about all the time, it's all a game. All of this is a game, whether you're talking about whatever, your business, your life, not to be disposable with any of it, but the whole thing is it's a game. And it's like understanding that as long as you're playing it on your own terms, your own rules, and you use things like people who inspire you or you aspire to be like, use that for good. And you look at them and think, I want that, and you chase it rather than constantly looking at the next person and that artifice, that elusive there that never comes. That's going to have a detrimental impact on your quality of life. Maybe not on your performance, but on your quality of life. And I think that's
really interesting. Do you think the rich and famous but broken behind the scenes is because they're rich and famous, but they've got there or they are there living a life that's not in accordance with what they actually value? It's not a life by design. It's not what they actually want. They've just been dragged along the whole process and been caught in the crossfire along the way.
I think it's a minefield. Honestly, I think we could do a whole podcast on that. Because I said to you as soon as I bought the Rolex, I got obsessed with that Rolex. But by the time I bought the Rolex, I knew the different models, I knew the brands, I knew the bracelets, I knew how much they were trading for, I knew the different waiting lists, I knew the different dealers. And I got really, it's the hedonic Ferris wheel, right?
Yeah.
On the way up, it's exciting and you're looking forward to it. You get the watch, and this hasn't been a media job. I am actually loving my watch. It's one of the few things I've ever bought. I've had supercars, I've had nice houses, I've had nice clothes. It's one of the only things I've ever bought that I genuinely really love, and it does bring me a degree of satisfaction. I'm sure that will wear off.
Still new.
Still new, exactly. It's still sexy. It's still fresh. Yeah, it's still the honeymoon period, right? We all love the honeymoon period. We all love phase one where it's novel. As soon as it becomes normal, you could then where's the value in that? The value is having challenges and targets and rewards, working by reward, on the basis that it gets you up and it keeps you moving and it gets things going and you enjoy being locked in and enjoy the process. But if you're doing all of the sacrifice for the model of getting this reward at the end, and then you actually start, which is what I think I did with business back in the day, I thought that when I was making millions of pounds and I had all the money that I could ever need, I would then be happy. It was a huge anticlimax for me because I was chasing this thing that didn't exist. Now I know it doesn't exist. I can use those things. Like you said to me jokingly that you thought I was going to turn up in a pinstripe suit today. And that is actually my next reward in my cycle of when I achieve X, I'm going to buy a new fitted suit. Is it going to change my life? Absolutely not. Am I going to enjoy putting it on once a month or once a year? I probably will do. Am I going to enjoy more the challenge and waking up every day and being excited and ticking off those days until I get it? Absolutely. Like, the exciting bit is on the way up the Ferris wheel. When you get what you think you want, the only way then is down.
I think what people can take away from this is orchestrating some of these fears and orchestrating some challenges which create some fear. You want to be able to orchestrate that. So living in silk sheets but running in the snow. What can get you out running in the snow? So it could be a body transformation, it could be a promotion, it could be business, it could be whatever, but something that instills a bit of fear. And fear has been something that I've been thinking about a lot in the last few days, mainly because I've been on this YouTube rabbit hole of watching Muay Thai videos and then mixing up with some music videos.
Yeah.
And I was watching these like old rapper videos. For some reason, I went down a DJ Khaled rabbit hole, and I was just watching because what he does really well is he brings like all the best names into one video. And I was watching them all, and I'm thinking, they're all such unique personalities. Like every single one of these megastars are such unique personalities. And I think, what makes them unique? I was like, they're just completely fearless in the way they present themselves. Now, whether it's a a crafted personality, whether it's an alter ego they've got. I don't know, because only they'll be able to tell us that, or if we're close to them in a relationship sense. But I thought the way they act is fearless, and I think there's a big part of what makes them unique. So the question for you I have is, what would you do differently if you were absolutely fearless in your life? And what do you think about that whole aspect of rappers? And
I think it's a really, really good example. I think there's a spectrum. There's always going to be a spectrum of people in that game. So rap is like something I know a reasonable amount about. So if you take someone like Lil Wayne, I would say Lil Wayne has got all of the trademark signs of someone who is fundamentally in a really difficult spot. He's abused his body, not abused his body, like things like facial piercings, facial tattoos. They're normally a sign of certain personal, internal challenges, characteristics, things like that. And when you hear him talk about his upbringing, his relationship with his absent father, you can understand why he's chosen this space to try and achieve something, etc., etc. I wouldn't that's just my caricature of him as an example. Perhaps it's never fair to use somebody as an example. But if you take the other end of the spectrum, someone like Dr. Dre is like 60 now. He's winning awards for Lifetime Achievement Awards. And in the last 30 years, he spent no more than 2 days out of the studio. But you put him on a mic, get him to read a speech, put him in front of a video camera. He's nervous. He's uncomfortable. He doesn't really he's always said he hates the sound of himself on mic, but he loves the music. He loves the art. He loves being in that moment. And when we talk about the definition of success being having a enjoyable experience or the optimal daily experience for a sustained period, I would say he's a really good example of someone who's done that for life and been through those movements in the market. Whereas I would say Lil Wayne is like probably constantly driven by the next piece of jewelry, the next, how many more teeth can you get in with more diamonds? Who can get the biggest jewel implanted in their head? I think there's like that spectrum with everything. I think the fearless thing's interesting because I think some things are fearless, but some things are done out of fear. It's like, Justin Bieber's on the outskirts of obviously like rap space, but DJ Khaled, he appears in a lot of DJ Khaled stuff. If you've not watched the Justin Bieber documentary, I can't remember what it's called, like Refinding Myself or Defining Myself. It was like a 5-part series when he did a new album. You can see that he's really in a difficult spot, and he's got a job and stuff like that, but it's his job. But it puts him in a difficult space. And how much does he do out of that? Out of love? How much does he do out of fear? How much of rappers is actually, what? I don't know. I think it's a really, really good question.
Well, the same can be said for like Elon Musk when we talk about him, is how much is it out of fear and how much is it out of love?
I suppose the bigger question is like, why is it an important question? The question is important or of values because how much does it serve us and when does it serve us?
Yeah.
I would say it's serving you really, really well now. I would say it probably served me really well up to my first sort of plateau where I realised that there wasn't a pot of gold, or there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it was literally just that, a pot of gold. There wasn't any happiness, success, fulfillment, reasonable amount of gratitude, but it wasn't I expected to wake up one day and having made it. Whereas now the things that got me there for fear of being driven, and I'm really grateful for where I've got to, is now I fear things like I need bad habits. I fear people don't think I'm busy. I fear people don't think I'm working.
That's interesting.
Because my work ethic, that was going to be one of my questions earlier when you were saying about your definition of freedom is being in the gym or being training at 2 PM. And one of my definitions of freedom for 20 years has been I can get my hair cut whatever time I want, whatever day of the week. Do you ever find yourself slipping into that trap where you feel like you need to be visibly busy or visibly present or visibly active when you've got an army of people around the world following you as clients? You've got a team of people around the world following you as an employer and a leader. Do you ever find yourself, I think this is a really good question. Do you find yourself falling into that trap?
Yeah, I do.
When?
If for example, let's say for example today, right? I'm with you most of the day. I'm recording in the studio. I'm in the studios right now. A habit I'll have is I'll message certain people on the team and say, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be out doing X, Y, Z. I'll be back at this time. Almost like it wouldn't have mattered, but it's almost like just so you know why I'm not online on Slack. This is why. So there is an element of that. There is that element of I need to show that I'm working hard, building the business, doing more than anyone else in the business. That does ring in my head, but I don't do it because of I'm already going to do it, but I have to almost just make sure that people know that I am quote unquote busy. At the same time, I've never gotten feedback around not doing that. If anything, the feedback is always, yeah, Akash is he's the hardest worker in the team, but that's probably come from what I've just mentioned.
And is that important? Is at a higher level, is hard work? There's obviously this whole controversy or topic around hard work, smart work. Where does it actually fit?
Well, I think when you run a business that you love and you love what it does for people, there is an element that you're always on, aren't you? It just becomes a lifestyle. Someone once told me, maybe about 7-8 years ago, he said running a business is like, it's just a lifestyle. You just need to get used to a constant low level of stress and thinking, good or bad. That's just constant in your lifestyle. And I think I can safely say that that's what it feels like to run one. So,
and do you ever feel like it's pushing you in the wrong direction, or has it got you? Is all that pressure? Is that tide and current pushing you in the right direction where you want to be going?
I think so. I think where I feel it doesn't serve me is when I'm dragged into stuff I don't like doing. And I think in the last year, I've become more and more clear around where I can add value. And something you told me a while ago was you need to move from heavy lifting to heavy thinking. And that mindset shift has really helped me not feel guilt around not being stuck in busy work. And I think the team are valuing that as well, because I can come up with better suggestions, be more creative, solve more problems. And then I can also coach them on effectively being better leaders and being better managers as well. So it's a difficult shift I found, and I do find myself stuck if I have a week where I'm not at the laptop as much as I normally am. I have to almost justify in my head why I'm not at the laptop and showing that I'm creating value in different ways. This week's probably a classic example.
Yeah, I get that. And I think for me, having had some time off last year, is where that work ethic become where it serves you, where it serves me and where it doesn't serve me. The only time I feel bad about I should be busy, I should be visible, same as the whole thing about integrity is who you are. Integrity is what you do when nobody's watching. I think it's the same for me at work. If I'm not being busy and I'm procrastinating and I should be doing stuff I'm not doing, or I'm going to go for a spa day on a Wednesday afternoon for no reason other than I just want to chill out, it will make me feel bad. I won't enjoy it. I'll feel guilty. Whereas if I've absolutely nailed it for 3 weeks, like I just did, and said to everyone, guys, I'm clocking off at 3:00 on Thursday. I won't be back till Monday. Don't ring me. Don't talk to me. Don't message me. Everyone's like, sound, get it. It's cool. And have a great 3 or 4 days off because I know that I've earned it. So I think it's like...
Well, Mum said to me the other day, because I picked up a lot of my work ethic from her. And she said to me the other day, she's like, oh yeah, me and your dad are going to the theatre on Wednesday afternoon. I was like, oh, that's nice. And it's very different. She's like, yeah, I've now come to the conclusion that this is just a lifestyle for me. So, whilst I may be off Wednesday afternoon, if inspiration hits me Sunday morning at 6 a.m, I'll work Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon. And it's not that Monday to Friday is the day I need to work and Saturday, Sunday isn't the day. I've just found a really good natural way of balancing the books through the week, through picking the moments that inspiration hit me whilst also getting the work done. And I thought that was a really interesting way to put it, because where I'm landing in the last few weeks with regards to what you said, because I'm spending so much time training for my Muay Thai, which means I work a few less hours than I used to, is that integrity piece. Is as long as I'm bringing a lot of value and not being lazy, then I don't feel the guilt. I think if I was to suddenly not work because of laziness, or I'm not going to do it because I'm doing other stuff, I'm getting distracted, then I think it would eat at my self-esteem and eat at the feelings of guilt and then integrity and authenticity. But I haven't had that experience,
Yeah, that's
which
good.
I think is really important.
Yeah, 100%. And also the false economy is being a busy entrepreneur is a complete false economy. Like entrepreneurs should be head in the clouds, visionary, creative, high value. Workers, with absolutely no disrespect, should be working. They should turn up, do the work, do the heavy lifting, run the company. And our job is to make sure they've got enough runway, they've got solutions to the problem, and we keep it moving. And the reality is, when we have the weekend off, we don't use our phones, is we have our best ideas and we get creative. But if we're going to honour ourselves and be a high performer sustainably, we can't work 7 days a week. So then actually it's like, how do you fit the creative high value work of Saturday and Sunday into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? And I feel like once you just break that limiting belief and say, and it's just earning your stripes in the team and the business.
It's also heavy wears the head, right? Is it heavy? What's the saying?
Yeah, well, I know what you're saying, but I don't actually know what.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and it's when you're running a business, you're always carrying that heavy load.
But do you find any sense of masochistic? And just a little shout out to Ian. Heavy lifting versus heavy thinking is actually one of his mantras.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Around more sort of like working on work rather than working in the business. Do you find any sort of, and he's a fellow masochist, do you find any sort of masochistic element of the badge of honour, the pride walk of carrying the weight of the world sometimes?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know what that is. Is that a high performer thing? Is it an ego thing? Is it a masculine thing?
I think there's an element of type A personality. There's that masculine energy involved. You're on a mission. You want to carry the troops with you. You want to push to new.
But it's fun, right? It's like
100%. Yeah.
If you're that way wired, people who, should this podcast land in the lap of somebody who works at Sainsbury's on the till and is going to do 35 years there, and they look. I saw a lady the other day. I'll chat to anyone. Got chatting to her, and I said, "Oh, how's things?" She goes, "Oh, I'll tell you what, I really just need to retire now. I'm ready to retire." And I said, "When is your retirement date?" 13 years. She said 30. She said he's going to retire in 13 years. And I just stood there and thought, wow, you're going to come to work for the next 13 years. Yeah. That's not living. That's not life. That's like, if this was to fall into somebody's lap, from my view, I would say there's a lot more of the world to explore, discover, create. But for some people, they would never think about it. They were never brought up with it. They were never exposed to it. They were never introduced to it. They were taught to go to school, get a mortgage, get married, have kids, pay the mortgage off, and retire quietly and, et cetera, et cetera. So people who are listening to this and don't think like that and are thinking about being a high performer, it's like you want to just make the most of it and take people with you. Find other people who've got similar values and have great fun. Like I look back on the 10 years I had with, say, PPN UK, and we built that. I had an amazing journey, loved it. Look back at the photos, it was amazing. What I actually got out at the end of it, what would I rather have, the experience or the result? It's like all day long it's the experience. That's all there ever is.
Especially when you've got an amazing team with you. It makes it really, really fun. And I always say to the team that we're doing something really special. We're doing something uncharted. There's no one to copy. We're filling a gap that's not there. And I genuinely believe it. I think we're doing remarkable work every single day. And it's a privilege to be able to share it with such fellow high performers who live and breathe the mission and want to go all the way with it.
And do you get any value in? Do you ever recognise the value of what you provide for them as well? As in the experience, the culture, the freedom, the flexibility, the input. Because we run hugely transparent businesses and take people, like you say, we go as a group. It's not your business; it's our journey, our culture, our mission.
I think the flexibility one is one I think about a lot because, like I value designing my days, we've given that opportunity for our team as well. And my mantra is, as long as you get the work done and it's quality, you can do it in a way that serves your lifestyle. If you have kids, then it may be you do 8 till 4. If you don't have kids and you want to go train in the have that 2 p.m. Monday afternoon session, that's also fine, as long as the quality of work is there. So the opportunity to provide flexibility and autonomy as a strong value of mine has been cascaded to the team, and that's important to me as well.
So I actually came up with this might be a little bit off the beaten track for this conversation, but I think it'd be a great one for anyone who works in a team, is building a business. There's been a few things banded around recently about the 4-day work week. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah. This
whole controversy over, like, does it work? Does it not work? Is it more productive? Et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, there's got to be a simple way to articulate how this works. And I think I've come up with it. Again, this was like walking around on a Sunday afternoon in Antwerp, just letting my brain do its thing. And it was like, the conclusion I came to is that as long as the house always wins, so a casino, you can play whatever game you want, have fun, play at that table, but the house always wins. That's why it's still open. That's why it works. You can play any game. You'll have great days. You'll have bad days. As long as the business wins, the net result is the business wins, then 4-day work week, flexible work hours, work from home works. As long as you've got the right people who understand that, do you know what? I've got to take the kid to the hospital, or I've got to take this afternoon off. It's my mum's 60th. But because of that, they work into the evening. Yeah. They get their work finished sooner than the deadline was due, rather than, oh, do you know what? I had a family issue. I couldn't do it. As long as the house wins, the flexibility is there to be used. When the flexibility is there and the house doesn't win, that's when it doesn't work. Same with weight cutting and buffering and stuff like that. As long as the ultimate result is heading up the mountain, it's cool. But if you take the mick and you roll down the other side, you're going to be the one that pays the price.
100%. And I think that's where the culture is really important in the company. And something, and what you said there is exactly what happens in the team. So if someone has a hospital appointment with a kid, they'll let me know, and they'll say, I'm just going to do this instead. Completely fine. Like, it doesn't matter to me, and that's important to me. Is like people are there for their family, because one of the reasons why I set up R&T in the first place was because I started seeing colleagues on the gym floor having kids, and they were never able to see their kids apart from Sunday, because you're out of the house at 5, you're back home at 10.
And that's not living, right?
No, you're running through a client's diary all day long, and without that flexibility, it's like you said, it's not living, and it eats at you. You can't do that for too long. You can only do that. You've got a shelf life, and I think the ability to have flexibility and autonomy is really critical. And when it comes to dietary adherence and fitness and health, I think when you don't have that autonomy and that design over your days in your life, you start looking at other ways for creating comfort and finding comfort in other means. And that's where you see people go to work at 6 a.m, back home at 8, and they've hated their entire day because they've been, on the clock. They come back, they drink a bottle of wine, they stuff their face, and they just repeat that cycle. They gain weight over the months, over the years, until they have a moment of like, shit, where did the last 10 years go?
And I think that is a perfect analogy, or a perfect example of when we're talking about, as long as the house wins, it's cool. And having this accountability, this framework, this structure, and being able to bend the rules but not break them, is like, you don't want to give your team enough rope to hang themselves, because they'll start getting up later. And look, if you, so it's basically trust but verify. Give them the space to do it, but also understand that nobody can be self-regulated. All of us need to have accountability. And it's like when I was doing my body transformation, and I'd went out and ate a load of pick and mix one night. And I was like, because I was honest about it and you knew what I was doing, you're like, that's cool, you can eat the pick and mix. But now I need another 250 calories a day for the next 5 days and an extra 2,000 steps. And it's like the house has to win. The net result, if you want to bend the rules and break the rules and have the flexibility, it's that homeostasis of equilibrium. It's got to come back to that balancing point. And the danger is, whether it's employees at work who've worked somewhere worked at a supermarket for 10 years, or worked in a place with no freedom, they then get the freedom, they enjoy the freedom, the novel becomes the normality, and all of a sudden they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and the house loses. And it's the same with weight transformation. Whenever I'm not on a training program or a weight cut or whatever we're doing, whatever program we're doing, the outcome, if you're left to your own devices, and when people are thinking about leaving RNT, it's always like, are you sure you want to do this? Because we all know what the outcome's going to be. We'll see you in 6 to 12 months, and you will have undone all the last hard work of the last 6 to 12 months, and we're back before where we started. And it's like, if you leave people to their own devices, the most unlikely thing to happen is progress.
Yeah, death by 1,000 cuts, as you like to say.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
I've stolen that line more than any other.
So true, right?
Yeah. One chocolate bar turns into 2, one glass of wine turns into a bottle.
Like laptop comes out at 7 a.m. rather than 8 a.m. rather than 10. 8 becomes 7:30. Before you know it, it's 4:30 in the morning. You're sitting with your laptop with matchsticks in your eyes, thinking, "Oh, I can't believe I wasn't here at 5 a.m." And you're like, you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror and like, I need to have a word with myself. This has got out of hand.
We talk about high performance a lot in this podcast, and for me, a big part of being a high performer is health and fitness. But for most listening who aren't in the health and fitness industry, it's probably going to be around business, career, and some sort of growth in that aspect. Health often falls to the wayside. In your own experience, when have you found that to be the case, and how have you kept yourself on track outside of the accountability mechanism? And what habits do you feel like start to creep in?
I get asked a lot about regrets. People say, obviously, everyone wants to know what's your biggest regret, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made. And when I look back, I always think that Conor McGregor's got a great quote which says, "I don't lose, I either win or I learn." And I definitely subscribe to that. I don't look at many of my mistakes professionally or personally and regret them, even the big personal or expensive professional ones. But what I do look back on is I wish I'd have taken better care of myself in my younger days. There's a great quote which says, "The problem with youth is it's wasted on the young, and you don't the benefits the investment you make in your life today, you're not going to see the benefit of it for 30 or 40 years." And that's very hard to grasp and understand as a high performer, a young person. That's why people don't give up smoking. If smoking killed you today and you put that cigarette in your mouth, you would give up today. But the reality is it's probably going to kill you slowly and painfully over the next 30, 40, 50 years. And that's why people don't tend to give up. It's hard to close that gap. As I've got older and I've started to realise the benefits of investing in my health and fitness, things like that, I start to appreciate, when we talk about high performance now, I can get up and feel like crap. I could probably still nowadays do what I used to do in my 20s, get up hungover, drag myself to the office and plough myself through 4, 5, 6 hours of work on a Saturday morning. The difference now is I just choose not to. I could be a high performer not feeling good, but for me, high performance is waking up and having that optimal daily experience for a sustained period. The biggest danger I have now is overcooking it. Like anyone who's eating a delicious meal, they love it. It's their favourite meal. You love eating it until you've stuffed your face, then you feel sick. It's the same with high performance. I can feel good getting up early, hydrating, not drinking alcohol, eating good food, training hard. But like we spoke about on the train here, it got to the end of last week, I'd overtrained, I'd overworked, I was left to my own devices for 2.5 weeks. And the outcome was negative, as the same way as it would be if I was to be drinking alcohol or overeating and not training. So it's finding that balance. And I think you've got your core habits, but the danger is it's high performance. Arthur Brooks talks about it. The biggest danger with it is so seductive. It's like that, like the masochist, people say, why would you do that? That looks so uncomfortable. It looks so painful. Like doing a weight cut. You're verging on in the space of like whatever you want to class it negativity, basically like self-harm to a degree, overworking, overtraining, under-eating. And we push it and push it and push it until it stops serving us. And now the game for me now is how do I spot those red flags and deal with that problem before it becomes an emergency and I'm burnt out. And an emergency for me would be not sleeping at all, ulcers in my mouth, stars on my eyes. That would be a burnout. A problem for me is like last week, my training suffered. I was too tired, lost interest. 3 or 4 days off, I'm back at it, and I probably need a holiday now.
Well, for most people to find and be able to sit in that sweet spot, they need to know what the extremes are. And the problem is, if you haven't been to the extreme, you're not going to know what your sweet spots are, or you're not going to know what the red flags are. So I think everyone should go to the extreme so they know what those red flags are, and then find a sweet spot afterwards, which is where the R&T journey works really nicely. You get into the best shape of your life, push yourself to the absolute limit, get into unsustainable condition, the photo shoot picture, and then work diligently to find your sweet spot, which is not going to be the same place you work around. It's not going to be the same place as your photo shoot, but it's going to be a place where you feel, look, and perform your best. And having that trifecta is really key, because you can look amazing, but you can feel and perform terribly. Or you can easily miss one. But having all three is where I think the sweet spot is, where everything just, I think, again, another analogy that you've given me is you live life in full colour.
Absolutely. And that is that's that optimum daily experience. It's the slow lane, middle lane, and fast lane. Yeah, the people who live in the slow lane have no interest in what we're talking about. They like the easy life. They're just not wired in a way to even consider it. And that's lucky for us, because if the world was full of high performers, you don't want your business full of high performers. If the world was full of high performers, it would be an absolute, it'd be a nightmare, right? We don't want another 8 billion of us. We want a few of us doing our thing in our space and the rest makes it work. The middle lane is where we should spend most of our time. That probably is the optimum daily experience.
Well, just on that middle lane, sorry to interrupt you there, because you mentioned a few times that you've had periods of plateau. How have you pulled yourself out of that? Because I think when you're stuck in your plateau is where growth is slower, and you start swimming, you start sleeping in the silk sheets, and turning away the runs in the snow. How do you pull yourself out of that? Because I think a lot of people can get stuck at certain levels in their life and then never really move on from it, and they stay the same for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years after achieving a little bit of growth earlier in their life.
I think this is as well a lot about personality types and profiling, because somebody like me is an extremist. I'm always up to something. I'm doing a bulking, I'm doing a weight cut, I'm buying schools now. I'm doing my year off. The whole thing of Property Entrepreneur is built around your life is a book, and every chapter wants to be an absolute page turner and completely different to the last. Most people have a book that's either not worth reading, or if it is, it's one or two main different journeys over a period of 50, 60, 80, 100 chapters, and it's making it very different. I like that. Whereas some people like the steady road. I've got clients, I've got investors, I've got friends who are more sort of steady. And I think what you said about going to the extreme is definitely something that works for everybody. And then some people might come back and stay in the middle. So, for example, it's the same for business, same for entrepreneurship, same for investing. Before the pandemic, I ran my businesses really lean. So I would have between 3 and 6 months cash in the bank, and that was it. Everything else was invested, growing, spending, scaling up, etc. Then the pandemic came, and I said to all of our clients, you want to get as liquid as possible. So I basically re-geared some of our portfolio, raised some debt, sold some businesses, sold some property, and got really liquid and had several £1 million in the bank. Because at that time, that extreme was well suited. Putting on all that sort of surplus made sense. And then what happened was after pandemic, we ended up in high inflation rate where it's really bad to have money. So over the last 18 months, I've been aggressively investing and allocating my capital, and I've gone super lean again, gone down to like 3 months in some of my bank accounts. And now that makes me feel really, really uncomfortable. So now I've really assessed where I want to be as a sweet spot, and I've found that sweet spot. But that's taken me 10 years to find that sweet spot. And I'm sure in 5-10 years, I'll forget it and I'll go and explore the forbidden fruit again.
I think the year of thing is something so good that you do. And I was actually telling Chani the other day, saying like living by intention is one of the hardest but one of the best things you can do. And I was like, Dan's such a great example, because in 2019 he did this. I was listing each of your years, and then he went on and lived on a narrowboat for a year. How many people do I know that would live on a narrowboat with their missus for a year? Probably not many. And then you decided, how little can I work? Can I semi-retire? And then this year you're doing something different as well. And I think it's inspired me to try and be very intentional with each of my years as well, because I can look back on each of my years and think, oh yeah, that year was this, that year was that. And I think it's a really good exercise for listeners to try, is to write a chapter, title each year as a chapter of your book. What are some of the exercises? I know we're into March now, but what are some of the exercises you can do to explore how to effectively name each chapter of a year so you're living more intentionally and creating that optimized sense of success every single day?
So the year of is the perfect way to live a life by design. And if you're not living a life by design, which you've chosen yourself, you're living a life by default, which means life served you this up, your work served you this up, you're following XYZ on social media, and you're just floating through whatever's being thrown at you. The aim of the game is every year to look at where you are, think about where you might like to be, and then set 3 personal objectives, 3 professional objectives, and then 1 year of, and that becomes the chapter for your year. And at the end of that year, you'll find things that you really, really enjoyed doing. Like I went and lived on narrow, I had a supercar Mercedes, lived in one of the most expensive penthouse apartments in Nottingham, did that for a year, realised I really didn't like it, went and lived on a narrowboat and realised actually I did the year of frugal hedonism. I absolutely love being frugal. I get pleasure from experiences, not from owning things, etc., etc. So being frugal is something I've kept, but living on a narrowboat is something I've not kept, because I like having a house, and it's not realistic to have a missus, 2 dogs, and potentially start a family on a 60-foot narrowboat. And it's just a really good opportunity to explore your life, make sure every chapter is a page turner and completely different. And what you'll find is there's things you enjoy, there's things you don't. And we also talk about challenges, have some challenges. And that's how your fighting came up, wasn't it? You're like, what am I going to do for my challenge this year, my fitness challenge? I'm either going to go running or go fighting.
Yeah.
And now we're 3 weeks out from you going 10 days out from caving some skulls in. And you just think, how would you have done that unless you gave yourself the opportunity to explore it? You probably wouldn't have organically fallen into it.
No.
You go looking for these things.
But where did you come up with that exercise out of interest?
I saw a social media post by a guy who I used to follow on social media, and he bought his target for the year was to get his own jet. So he called it the year of the jet, because his year was like, all of my targets this year are based on achieving the jet. Yeah. And I thought, that's really cool, but I'm not really into jets. So I was like, I wonder if it could be the year of something I would value, which would be like an experience. And then I sort of build it out. And then I thought, in Property Entrepreneur, we have headline strategy, which is every year your business has a strategy. You know, headline strategy, one focus, the destination in the sat-nav. Why not roll it over to our personal lives? And in 2018, we created the year of.
Oh, okay, so it's quite new. Yeah.
Yeah, so 5 years old now, yeah. So I've got my 5, maybe 6 years. I've got my 6 year ofs, and some of them were absolute life changers. Year of frugal hedonism was probably one of the best years I've ever had in my life. Middle of the pandemic, lived on an narrowboat, lived off 750 quid a month, and absolutely loved every single second of it. The year of level up, where I was driving supercars, buying companies, expanding the size of our developments, really uncomfortable, didn't enjoy it. You know, it was extreme, but it's a chapter of the book, and you wear those successes and wear those scars for the rest of your life.
What are some of the signs of living a life by default that you found?
I think valuing other people's expectation above your own. So if you find you're making decisions on a daily basis based on what other people will think, that's more like the highlight reel of social media, is like trying to be something that other. There's a good quote about when you're looking at sizing up your life partner, and it's like, is your life partner what you want them to be? Are you looking for a life partner who is what you want them to be, or what you want other people to think them to be? And a lot of people would normally go for what they want other people to think. Whereas actually, long-standing relationships, Jay Shetty talks a lot about this. Like, he's talking a lot about this with all of his new content. He's talking about, it's about the relationship you have with your partner, not what other people think of your relationship, how you structure it, things like that. And default would be doing things you don't like. So, for example, I got on that tube this morning and I literally put a picture on my Instagram saying, this is not living.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to people who do this, like, fair play to you. But for me personally, if I was choosing to get on the tube every day at 8:30, 7:30, 6:30, go to an office 5 days a week, 48 weeks of the year, look forward to my 3 weeks holiday, for me, that would be a life by default. I'm falling into society's framework. Whereas for me, I work 18 hours a day for myself. I work twice as hard for half as much, but it's on my terms.
Yeah. I used to spend 14, 15 hours a week commuting when I was a personal trainer. And now the idea of being on the train at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, it just fills me with dread and that memory of what used to be.
And granted, there's not to down talk it and make people who listen to this who are going to do that feel bad, but it's like, if it's serving you,
yeah, totally.
Great, it's part of the design, it's getting you where you want to get to. If it's not serving you and you're serving it, that's default. If you're not doing what you want to do on a daily basis, that is life by default.
And I think you've got to question those things as well. I think it's very easy to sort of let life sweep you by. You know, I have some friends who tell me that they love the commute and they love the hours, but you know, they'll also tell me that they don't know how long they can do this for. And that to me signals a sign of, well, okay, what is the actual game plan here?
And this is where, again, I have to be careful not to characterize people or offend anyone. It's not my intention. But when we're thinking about high performance, aspirational living, doing things like investing in your health and fitness, is like, if you're driven, one of the worst mistakes that I hear is people say, oh, I can't do a body transformation this year because I'm too busy.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you're busy that you need to do a body transformation, because when you're locked in and dialed in with your health, your sleep, your fitness, your relationships will be better, your work will be better, your energy levels will be better. It's a complete false economy thinking it's one or the other. Wealth doesn't come as a benefit of sacrificing health. In fact, if you flip it on your head, invest in your health, you'll be more productive, you'll be a clearer thinker. And also, whether you're employed, if you're employed and you're sitting in the office and you're working 18 hours a day and your shirt buttons are popping open, you've got gravy down your top and you're absolutely exhausted smashing caffeine, when the boss or the manager is looking at who to promote, is it going to be the super? Is it going to be the guy that's sitting there with gravy down his top, or is it going to be the shredded woman, the powerhouse that's walking around in fitted dresses, owning the space, feeling confident, who may be working less hours, but maybe academically or practitionally as equal? And it's the same as an entrepreneur. If you are an entrepreneur, I assume you're going to want to work with high net worth individuals or have a network of peers who want to operate with you. The higher you go up the triangle, the more you realise things like self-care, self-love, health, fitness, physical appearance. People. Jim Rohn says people shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but they do. Like, you turn up and what you look like and what you're wearing is the first thing they're going to do. And if you look the business and you look in good shape and you feel confident, it'll do you well.
Your body's a representation of your mind.
100%. And you say, if you can't be CEO of your own body, you can't be CEO of a business. It's so true. I'm not saying any of this is easy. Like, I'm not advocating that at all. I'm just saying it's very true.
What do you look for in your partner?
What do I look for? My relationship specifically is a good example of like a yin and yang relationship. So you have some people who are very similar. So, for example, think about famous couples, whether they're actors or like Alex and Layla Hormozy are doing the rounds at the minute. They're the big now sort of power couple. They're doing that and they're living 24 hours a day in each other's lane, and they're absolutely loving life. I would say my relationships have always been a bit more yin and yang. Like, I'm not looking for competition. I'm not looking for somebody to be in the fast lane with me. My game, when I'm property entrepreneur, so when I'm playing property entrepreneur, which will be me with my Rolex, my Rolls Royce, rolling up at events, delivering speaking, being on social media, there'll be a lot of Dan Hill in there, but there's also property entrepreneur on stage. When I get back on Friday, I don't go home and start eating caviar and like have a chef cook me lobster. I'll come in and I'll eat whatever I can that's within my plan. I'll quite happily spend all weekend in my pajamas. Like, it's hard to say what you look for in your partner, because I would never have looked for that in a partner. That's what works with my relationship with my partner now. Back in the day where I strategically looked for a partner, I went for life by default. I went for who should I be dating? And I decided I wanted somebody with limited previous partners, somebody who was ideally had a degree of religion or spirituality. Everybody liked them. So a real nice, lovely person. And that was who I ended up in a relationship with. I got married. She was, by definition, what anybody would want as a partner. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And that was an example of me trying to use life by default. My most recent relationship, my current relationship, is more, I wouldn't say it's design, but it's more that whole thing about looking for what I'm looking for, not what I think other people want.
That's interesting. I was very clear before I met Channy. I had a 4-point criteria list, and it was like they need to be ambitious, they need to be family driven, they need to value their health and fitness, and they need to be intelligent. And that was it. Those were my 4 criteria.
My friend, I played squash with a friend the other day who told me he had a spreadsheet. He had this spreadsheet where he must have used it for 5 years, trying to find his ideal partner. And now he's found he's married, and fingers crossed that they're going to start a family this year. So I
think it's just another part of life by design, right?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. But it's being really clear about what's important to you. So that is, if they are the things that are important to you, then absolutely. And it's the same with business and jobs. I've spoken potentially quite critically in this podcast about people who fall into the normal framework of society. But I've got friends, I've got family, my partner are employees. They work for businesses. And the idea of them spending any time before work or after work or at the weekend on work is alien. They go to work, they earn their money, and they live for the bit before, the bit after, and the holidays. And they can't imagine taking on the stress that we have as entrepreneurs. But that's their life by design. They're their values. And if that suits you and suits them, then, more power to them.
At the same time, you also get a great team who not necessarily will take on that stress, but they will live and breathe the mission and live and breathe the company. But that's in both corporate world and in startups as well. So it really depends on what you want. Because I have friends who are, real high flyers in the corporate world that just live and breathe it and they love it. And they'll work 7 days a week, Saturday nights, and that's for them is what they enjoy doing right now. How long they do it for, I'm not sure, but.
And I think an important there, and this is like taking it to the ultimate like wisdom level, is in the same way that for health, the decisions you make today, you're not going to see the benefits for 20, 30, 40 years, the extreme benefits. Obviously, you're going to see benefits straight away, but the extreme ultimate life expectancy, quality of life at an old age, bone density, strength, things like that, you're not going to see it for 20, 30, 40 years. It's the same with wealth management. And like one of the dangers is people live the city life. They earn 100 grand a year, £500,000 a year. They go on this entrepreneurial journey and they burn the candle at both ends. They make their money, they risk the house, they play at the roulette wheel. But the real wise man at the table is doing that for the short term and enjoying the fun, but also behind the scenes building for the long term, which is going to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week, doing your cardio, eating good quality proteins, high quality food, and seeing limited value for it today on the basis that when that day comes that you don't want to work in the corporate world anymore, and you have 2 or 3 or 5 years that there's a podcast episode on the official Property Entrepreneur podcast called Living Off the Steam. And it's the aim of the game is like, let's assume this paycheck is your last paycheck. And you want to make sure that when that day comes that you can't work anymore, or you don't want to work anymore, family members ill, you're ill, the business goes bust, it doesn't matter to you financially, because for the last 5, 10, 20 years, you've been investing in your portfolio, your wealth, your health. And then when the day comes that you need to call on it, it's there to catch you. Because to have that foresight is a very wise trait that very, very few people have.
Naval has 3 good questions he talks about when it comes to life by design, and it's the 3 most important questions to answer are who you're going to be with, where you're going to live, and what you're going to do. And I think it's a good closing sentiment for today's podcast is to, even if you're married, you've got responsibility, you're in a career like this, it's never too late to rethink, or at least make sure you're being intentional with those 3 questions. Where do you live, who you're with, and what do you do for a living? Because that's what you spend most of your time and energy in.
I think that's great. Yeah, great sentiment to close on. And I'd say the concept of where do I want to live, I would say I haven't cracked that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I feel like I've stumbled upon Ealing quite organically because Chani was living there when we were dating. But now I can't imagine myself living anywhere else but Ealing for at least for the next couple of years. We were saying today's our we've been living in this place now 3 years and a month. And when we moved in, we said, we'll probably be here for about 2-3 years. And we're like, yeah, another 2-3 years won't go amiss, because I can't imagine living anywhere else. I've got the gym in 10-minute walking distance, which for me is always a big thing. I want a serious gym that's walking distance from me. I met you today in Liverpool Street, which is the other side of London, in 35 minutes door to door, which is unheard of. We've got this new Elizabeth line in London, which connects west to east in half an hour. So it's just a beautiful place for me to be in, and I love it. And I think it just happened kind of out of nowhere.
If you expand that closing sentiment to everything in life, it is life by design. It's like, who do you want to spend your time with? When you get to a point where you're doing work you don't like for money you don't need, it's like, what do you then start to focus on? You focus on who do you want to spend your time with? What deals do you want to do? What businesses and risk profile do you want to take? And all of this into health, challenges, wealth creation, entrepreneurship. Yeah, it's all about being deliberate, being decisive, and creating that life by design, and not, fall into that default. But we'll still be here talking about it in 10 years. So we'll see how we get to.
It's always evolving. And if you enjoyed this episode, and if you've listened to this episode and thought this is quite hard hitting, because I think there's some points here that were quite hard hitting, especially from you. I think it's if you felt sort of triggered, or you felt like, oh wow, I didn't expect that. It's a good opportunity to explore why you felt that, and potentially explore some questions and answers that you may need to think about. and decide on.
One of the things around self-awareness and personal development is people who listen to this who aren't happy, who don't feel good, is that whenever that happens to me, like yesterday when I felt sick, driving up to pull up to pick up my dream, it wasn't my dream car, but because I never really had a dream car. Or I had a Maybach. That was my dream car and how this whole stupid thing started. But when you feel sick, it's really starting to reflect and have that self-awareness and the opportunity to ask why. And anyone who's listening to this who isn't happy, fulfilled, driven, enthusiastic, who isn't basically loving life or on a journey to try and enjoy their life more, it's just getting a journal or looking yourself in the mirror and just being like, why do I feel like this? Why are things not going well? Rather than just appreciating that this is just how life is. Life's tough, life's hard, it's going to be challenging. It's like, why do I feel like this? And at the end of it, getting to know yourself, at the end of it, you'll find out why. And organically you'll develop, you'll grow, you'll enjoy it more. And it's a lifelong practice and journey, but it just gets better and better.
Thanks for coming on the podcast again.
Thanks for having me.